At my wedding, the air smelled like frosting and perfume sweet enough to choke on. The band had just switched to something soft when my mother leaned in, smiling for the cameras, and said, "We're passing the car his parents gave you over to your sister." Her tone was light, rehearsed like she was rearranging napkins. Danielle laughed beside her sequins flashing. "Relax," she said, "it's just a car." The guests didn't catch it, but my stomach did a drop cold and final. My groom didn't move. He just looked at them, calm, unreadable. And that look changed everything. People say weddings reveal who really loves you. Mine revealed who never did. I grew up in a house where fairness was a story told at dinner, never lived in the kitchen. My mother Grace loved order, the kind that kept her looking perfect and kept me quiet. My father Richard was the man who believed silence fixed things. And Danielle, my little sister, was the delicate one. The world bent for her. I was the hinge that made it move. When we were kids, she got the bigger room because she was afraid of the dark. When she crashed her first car, Mom blamed the rain. I worked double shifts to buy mine, and Mom called it good character building. Danielle was the reason I was the resource. That pattern raised me, someone always taking, someone always explaining. By 29, I had built a life outside their script. I was an interior designer, careful and precise, the kind of woman who paid her own bills and didn't borrow dresses. Meeting Evan felt like stepping into sunlight that didn't burn. He came from a family that believed in boundaries and respect. His parents weren't rich, but they were generous in the way that cost nothing: listening, trusting, handing you space. At our rehearsal dinner, they handed me a small silver key in an envelope. "You built this together," his father said. "Here's something to help you move forward." A used car clean, reliable, titled in my name. It wasn't about the metal, it was about what it meant. Trust, partnership, the kind of gift you protect. That night, I'd caught Mom's expression, tight, polite, already calculating. She'd smiled at Evan's parents and said, "How thoughtful," but her eyes flicked to Danielle like a reflex. I should have recognized it for what it was, an early warning. The morning of the wedding, she fussed over my hair, told me how proud she was. "You've always been so giving, Eva," she said, smoothing my veil. "Don't lose that." Her perfume filled the air, sweet, heavy, impossible to breathe through. I smiled back, pretending not to understand the message behind the compliment. But part of me already knew. Some gifts aren't meant to be shared. The reception felt like a movie playing too loud. Laughter, clinking glasses, 1,000 polite smiles, all performing the same scene. Evan's hand rested on my back as we swayed through our first dance. For a moment, it almost felt safe, like the world had agreed to behave. Then I saw my mother cutting through the crowd, her pageant smile already set in place. She stopped beside us, perfume trailing behind her, and spoke just loud enough for the nearest tables to hear. "We're passing the car his parents gave you, over to your sister." Every sound in the room blurred. Someone laughed at another table. The band's singer drew out a note that suddenly felt like sirens. Danielle appeared glowing under the fairy light sequins, throwing shards of light across her grin. "Relax," she said, a playful shrug in her voice. "It's just a car." It wasn't about the car. It was about everything that had ever been taken and repackaged as kindness. I looked at my mother's face, composed, benevolent, so sure she was right. She tilted her head, waiting for me to perform gratitude. "You and Evan can manage with one," she added. "You've always been so practical." A guest snapped a photo, catching her hand on my arm, her smile wide. In the picture, no one would see the way her fingers tightened. I didn't respond. Evan's thumb brushed the inside of my wrist. A small question, "Are you okay?" I breathed in glass and frosting and the old taste of obedience. Dad drifted over, drawn by the tone in her voice. "What's going on?" he asked, eyes flicking between us. "Nothing serious." Mom answered quickly, "Just helping Danielle out. She's had awful luck with cars." Danielle laughed again, soft and rehearsed. "It's fine, Mom. She doesn't mind sharing." Sharing. The word landed like a bruise. I thought about the night I'd stayed up fixing Danielle's resume, the dress she'd borrowed, and lost the endless apologies I made on her behalf. All those small surrenders dressed as love. I smiled, then small, calm, dangerous. "You're right," I said. "I don't mind sharing." My mother relaxed, mistaking surrender for peace. Evan didn't. His hand found mine again, steady, certain. Across the room, the fairy lights flickered. A camera flashed. The air felt tight, like the moment before a storm breaks. I leaned closer to Evan and whispered, "It's starting again." He looked at me, not surprised, just ready, and in that silence I realized something simple: they didn't come to celebrate me. They came to test how much of me was still theirs. After the cake was cut and the music softened, the room began to empty into laughter and wine. I smiled through photos, accepted congratulations that tasted like dust, and counted the minutes until I could breathe again. When the last guest disappeared toward the parking lot, Evan and I slipped out a side door into the quiet hallway. He leaned against the wall, unbuttoning his collar. "Do you want me to say something to them?" "No," I said. My voice didn't shake. "We already did." He frowned, then understood. "We talked about this months ago, half joking over takeout. My mother's habit of turning my things into family property wasn't new, it was inherited behavior, so I'd decided to stop being inheritable. 2 weeks before the wedding, my coworker, who also happened to be a paralegal, helped me draft a notarized declaration. Every gift received in my name was legally protected, not to be transferred or sold without my written consent. I'd signed it in blue ink. So had Evan. I remembered her exact words when she stamped it, "You're not being paranoid. You're being prepared." Back in the hall, Evan reached for my hand. "You knew this might happen." "I hoped it wouldn't," I said, "but I didn't want to bleed again without a bandage." We stood there for a while, listening to muffled laughter from the banquet room. It sounded distant, hollow, like something already ending. I thought about the look on my mother's face, the delight of control disguised as generosity. She'd spent years training me to play the role of the gracious daughter. I had learned it so well that no one saw the quiet calculations behind my smile. Evan's phone buzzed. A text from one of the guests. "Your sister's already posting about the car." He turned the screen toward me. There it was, a photo from our garage, Danielle posing beside the car with the caption, "Finally got a ride that fits me." I laughed once, dry and low. She couldn't even wait till morning. He met my eyes. "So what do we do now?" I reached for my clutch fingers, brushing the thick envelope inside. "Now," I said. "We let them open their own trap." Evan exhaled slowly, a quiet sort of pride in his voice. "Then let's go finish the party." We straightened our clothes, fixed our smiles, and walked back toward the music. My heart was steady now. The storm had already changed direction. We walked back into the ballroom as the band shifted into another safe romantic tune, something meant to fill silence. The room glowed gold again, but the air had changed. Conversations felt thinner. Eyes darted away and back. My mother was near the cake table, laughing too loudly, a queen restored to her stage. Danielle hovered beside her phone in hand, pretending to scroll. When she saw us, Mom brightened. "There they are," she called, like we'd been gone on a honeymoon already. "Everyone's asking where the bride went." I smiled, handling a few final details. She didn't hear the weight in that sentence. Or maybe she did, and thought she could still outplay me. "Good," she said. "We're wrapping up soon. Danielle needs a ride home anyway." Evan stepped forward just a little. "She has one now, doesn't she?" His voice was light, polite, surgical. Mom blinked. "What?" "The car," I said. "You said she's taking it." Danielle tensed, eyes flicking between us. "Oh, come on, Eva," she started. "Don't make this weird. It's just a car I finished for her, I heard." Dad wandered closer, trying for peacekeeping. "Can we not do this here?" I turned to him. Calm. "Here's the thing, Dad. This is where she did it. Publicly." The band faltered, then kept playing. A few guests turned their heads, the scent of champagne turning sharp. Mom's smile stiffened. "Eva, sweetheart, you're overreacting." It was a misunderstanding. We meant Evan held out an envelope. "You might want to read this before you finish that sentence." Her hand hesitated before taking it. She glanced at Danielle, then at me, then unfolded the paper. The rustle was loud enough to cut the music. Danielle leaned in to read over her shoulder. At first confusion, then recognition, then color draining inch by inch. Mom tried to laugh. "What is this? A notarized declaration," I said. "Executed 2 weeks ago. It states that all wedding gifts titled in my name can't be sold, gifted, or transferred without my written consent. Any attempt triggers a legal review and forfeits future inheritance from Evan's side." The last words landed like a stone dropped into a still pond. Conversation stopped. Someone whispered, "Oh, wow." Danielle let out a short, panicked laugh. "You can't be serious." I met her eyes. Completely. Dad exhaled through his nose. "This is petty Eva." "No," I said softly. Petty is pretending theft is family tradition. Mom's voice hardened. We're family. You don't treat us like criminals. You went into our garage last night, I replied. You took photos of the car and posted them. Danielle's face froze. That was a joke. Symbolic, Evan asked quietly. Symbolic of what exactly? Her lips parted. No answer. I turned to Mom. This isn't about the car, it's about the pattern. You call it love when you take what's mine and tell me I'm good for giving it. You're being dramatic, she snapped. Maybe I said, but this time the drama has witnesses. A ripple went through the guests, phones half raised, half hidden. Someone's aunt mouthed drama behind her champagne flute. Danielle's voice cracked. You'd really embarrass the family like this. I'm not embarrassing anyone, I said. I'm just ending the script. Evan took my hand, grounding me. His tone was even calm. Mrs. Harper, you should keep that paper. It's legal documentation. Mom stared at him like he'd betrayed her personally. You encourage this. No, he said. She didn't need encouragement, just respect. Danielle's face turned red. You married up, didn't you? Think you're better than us now, Evan didn't answer. I did. Better no. Boundaried. Absolutely. The word hung there. Boundaried. Like a foreign language in that house. Mom tried again, desperate. We raised you to be kind. You raised me to give, I said. You taught her to take. That was the fracture. The one sentence that split the air in half. The band stopped playing altogether. Even the fairy lights seemed to flicker. Danielle stepped closer, trembling. You'll regret this. I smiled faintly. I already did for 29 years. For the first time, Mom's perfect composure cracked. Her voice wavered. Eva, please. Don't do this in front of everyone. Then you shouldn't have done it to me in front of everyone. She opened her mouth again, but no words came out. The silence that followed was thick enough to touch. Evan leaned into the band. Play something, he said quietly. The drummer lifted his sticks, uncertain. The singer looked at me for permission. I nodded. Music rose again, soft, defiant, a heartbeat. Evan pulled me back to the dance floor. The guests parted like we were royalty or a bomb. As we moved, I caught reflections in the mirrors. Mom's face pale and still. Danielle's mascara smudged, Dad staring at the floor. The envelope sat on the table between empty glasses. Evan whispered, Breathe. I am, I said. And for once, it was true. When the song ended, I turned to my parents, still frozen near the cake. Help isn't theft, I said evenly, and love isn't access. I placed the empty champagne flute beside the envelope and walked away with Evan through a sea of quiet stares. Behind us, the applause didn't come, just whispers like wind through a cracked door. Outside, under the string lights, I exhaled everything I'd been holding for years. Evan slipped his arm around me. You okay? I nodded. I think I just stopped apologizing. He smiled. About time. We stepped into the night, the music still humming behind the doors. Somewhere inside the smile my mother wore all my life finally fell. The drive home was quiet, the kind of quiet that felt earned. The city lights blurred past soft and far away. I rolled the window down, letting the wind pull at my veil until it came loose and drifted into the night. Evan laughed under his breath. You just threw away your movie moment. Good, I said. I don't want one. We drove in silence after that, hand in hand, the same car they tried to steal humming beneath us. Every mile felt like distance from an old wound. When we reached our house, Evan turned off the engine but didn't move. You did it, he said quietly. I did what broke the pattern. Inside the kitchen still smelled like the morning coffee we never finished. I slipped out of my shoes, feeling the tile cool under my feet. On the counter sat my phone, buzzing with missed calls, Mom. Danielle, unknown numbers. I turned it face down. Outside, crickets filled the air. For the first time, the silence didn't ache. It settled. Evan wrapped his arms around me from behind. Still want that honeymoon drive? I smiled. Let's take the car. A week later, I stood in our kitchen with sunlight spilling across the floor. The same house, the same car in the driveway, but everything inside me felt rewired. On the fridge, one photo remained, the moment at the wedding when Mom's smile cracked and I held the envelope. I used to think it looked harsh. Now it looked honest. I realized freedom didn't roar. It whispered. It was the sound of a phone that didn't ring anymore, of doors I could lock without guilt. People say families fall apart because of pride or money. Maybe. But sometimes they fall apart because one person finally stops pretending. I looked at that photo and whispered, boundaries don't destroy families. They define them. If you've ever had to draw a line with someone who called it love, share your story below. You're not alone and you don't owe anyone your peace.